Greetings and a very warm welcome to all the delegates who have joined today. I'm Shwastika, your assigned moderator from Clirnet, and I'm so excited to have all of you with us today joining us from across the country. A huge thanks to our wonderful doctors whose invaluable support makes events like this possible. We are so grateful for your time and expertise, and we know your presence will make today's session even more special. So before we dive into the main content, let me share a little more about Clirnet. It's one of India's largest live digital CME platforms where doctors can create, share, and engage with some truly innovative medical content. It's a space designed for learning, connecting, and growing together as a community of medical professionals. And now it is my great privilege and honor to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's session, Dr. Amitav Banerjee, sir. Professor of Emeritus in the Department of Community Medicine at Dr. T.Y. Patel Medical College, Pune, India. Dr. Banerjee is a highly respected academician and public health expert with extensive experience in the community of medicine, epidemiology, and medical education. Over the years, he has made significant contribution to teaching, research, and policy-oriented public health initiatives. His work has greatly influenced preventive healthcare strategies and evidence-based medical practice. The topic for today's session is writing and rating scientific paper basics of writing a scientific paper. So without any much further ado, sir, I would like to hand over the session to you. Kindly proceed, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Swastika, and it's a pleasure to come on Clirnet. So today we have an important topic of discussion, that is firstly how you write and how you rate, how you appraise a published research paper. Both have follow the same principles. If you know how to write, you will know how to appraise a paper, whether it is worth it, because this would be the relevance and scope, because Indian doctors contribute a lot to the medical care. I mean, we attract patients from all over the world, even developed countries. But our research output is not commensurate with our clinical output. We have a vast body of medical cases, unique cases. Being a tropical country, the diversity of cases are much more than what is found in the developed world, but we are not able to do justice because we do not master the art of medical writing. And if we understand what are the basics, what are the core issues, then our research output can improve. And also those who are not into research, those who are just doing clinical practice, for them also it is becoming extremely important to know how to read, how to rate a paper, because there are claims and counterclaims. There is an overload of information. There is information overload, and it can be very confusing. So if you just know the core things to pick up in a paper, you will know whether the paper is worth reading, because based on that paper, you will be treating your patients. So if you know how to read a paper, it enables you to practice really evidence-based medicine. Evidence-based medicine is not anything which is put on the net. There's a lot of trash which you find on the net. So you should know how to assess a paper, what are the basic, sorry. So these are the parts. You can break it down for scientific paper. You have to start with the title, because the scientific title is different from a media title, which is sensational. Then the abstract, that is the summary. Then these are the Vancouver style. Then there is an introduction, material, methods, results, discussion, and references. This is about an original article. We are limiting ourselves to original article. So these are the things to look for in the title. It should convey the research question. Just one sentence, it should convey, it should be interesting, it should attract attention, and at the same time, it has to be objective. It should not be like a newspaper title, which is sensational. Key features should be mentioned. Key features can be the study design. As you know, in evidence-based medicine, the highest form of evidence is a randomized control trial. Then comes the cohort studies, or non-randomized trial, then cohort, then case control, then the case report, and then expert opinion. So the title should convey what type of study it is. So immediately the reader knows what is the level of evidence. And the checklist, how do you know whether a title is appropriate? The title should convey the research question, the problem which the paper has addressed. Then it should be objective in tone. It should not be sensational. Special features like impact of yoga on low backache, a randomized control trial. You know immediately that it is a RCT. That one sentence conveys what is the predictor, that is yoga, what is the outcome, that is the backache, and then what is the study design. It's a RCT. So it has a higher, or it can be a cohort study, or it can be a case control study. So accordingly, it goes down in the pecking order of evidence. This is an example from a newspaper headline. So a scientific title cannot be like that. The newspaper headline is sensational, that mosquitoes can give you AIDS. They have taken it out of context from a published paper which explored the awareness about AIDS among college students. So about 40-50% gave that it can be transmitted by mosquitoes. They gave the response. So they made it a headline, but it is out of context. It is misleading. It is sensational. So a scientific title should not be like this. And in the small print, they have mentioned ki 88% mentioned junior college students that it can be trans. So this is not the title for a scientific paper. Now we come to the abstract. Before the main paper, the abstract, and many editors, many reviewers, and even when you send for conferences, or even as a user, as I said, a clinician can be using a scientific paper for his practice. He may not be a researcher. From the abstract only, you can rapidly make out whether the paper is worth reading. And as a writer, you know whether if your abstract is right, it will go further in the publication. Otherwise, it will be rejected, desk rejection. So most abstracts nowadays ask for a structure, like it should have four parts: introduction or background or research question, just 2-3 lines, because abstract has got a word limit of 250 words or 300 words. So you have to put 4 sections in that. So 2 lines, 3 lines. So 2 line, what is the research question? You can say yoga, backache is a major problem and yoga is a non-pharmaceutical. Yeah. So we explored the impact of yoga on backache. I'm just giving an example. So that conveys the public health importance, yoga, the clinical relevance, non-pharmaceutical. I mean, then comes the method. Method should convey in 3-4 lines the core issues, that we carried out a randomized control trial of yoga as the predictor. Predictor means that is the implementation, and the outcome to measure the backache. And you have to then give the core issues in the abstract. How many participants, how selected, sample number of participants, random allocation, blinding कैसे किया, were they blinded, or at least investigated and blinded, because yoga you cannot blind a participant. That is a mnemonic is PICO, PICO. Who are the participants? Intervention, what was the intervention? Whether it is standard yoga, supervised, unsupervised. There are different schools of yoga you have to mention. So everything about the intervention or the cause. In observational study, the cause, say smoking, outcome is some, say, hepatic carcinoma or some pulmonary carcinoma, lung. So smoking outcome, and how you measure the intervention, how you measure the outcome. Backache, you have to say how it was measured. Are there any scale or are there any metrics? Depending. And what was the control group? how it was selected. In a randomized control trial, automatically there are two groups. What is and how what was given to them? The usual. So this comes in the methods and outcome. And what can be the other confounding factor? In randomized control trial, the confounders they get balanced by random allocation. But suppose it's an observational study, it's cohort study. Suppose you are seeing something about a vaccine and respiratory infections. So if it's an observational studies, you have not randomly allocated. You have just taken people who are vaccinated and who are not, and you just find that people who are vaccinated are getting less exposure of respiratory infection. They may be a major confounder because people who take the vaccine may be from better socioeconomic status, they may be having better housing, better, they may not be going in crowded buses or crowded trains. So that can be a major confounder. So you have to use your common sense. So in an observation study, you have to describe the confounders, how you adjusted for it, either when you are assembling the cohort or while analyzing stratified analysis or multivariate. So these are the important measures and methods. 3-4 lines you have to use. These were used, these were participants, this was the intervention, this was the outcome, how you measured the outcome. If there are any confounders in observation studies, how you measured it and how you controlled for it. And then methods will also have 1 or 2 lines on the statistical test use outcome. Depending on the outcome, if it is a quantitative, you use parametric test. And then comes the, or if it is a categorical, you can use odds ratio or chi-square test. And the results should answer the research question. What was the research question? The yoga on backing. So you have to stick to that results. The authors have to stick to that when you appraise a paper or when you are writing. So you have to say that the intervention group had a better score on recovery or whatever, however you measure it. And most important is what was the difference in the two groups. That is known as the effect size. That is more important than the p-value. Then comes the p-value, and then you have to give the 95% confidence interval also. That is, this is the difference. And if suppose 100 people have repeated the study with the same sample, the range, 95% range is from this to this. That those are statistical calculation which the software can work out or a statistician can work out. So you have to just know the concepts. So just if you read a paper which says the effect size, that is more important. Then the confidence interval, and the smaller the sample size, the larger will be the confidence interval, so much that it may lose clinical relevance, uncertainty. So, and if it is a robust sample size, good sample size, you will have a narrower confidence interval. So when you are reading a paper, you look at the confidence interval and it has to be there, then it's a good paper. And if it is narrow, then you can place more. I am just giving a rapid tips from the abstract only. Then you can read for details in the full paper. Then the conclusions. Conclusions should be based on the results. Conclusion should not be general that yoga is good, yoga gives you good sleep or mental health and all that. You have only research question was impact of yoga on backache. You should limit, the conclusion should limit what you have got the results that it is important for backache. Then you have to, what will you do with that? Whether you make it a public health policy, whether you make it a clinical paradigm, or whether there are any uncertainties which needs to be explored further. So that is what we will do with the result. That is the conclusion, and it should relate to the results. And results should relate to the research question. Result cannot go beyond that. Sleep bhi acha hua, you had better stress relief and all that. It is only on backing, that's all. And then the keywords. Keywords, minimum 3 keywords, which will help in your paper getting picked up in the search engines. And there are certain MESH terms, medical subject heading, MESH, you will get in PubMed. But nowadays, most of these engines are very sensitive. Keywords are picked up easily. So this is the abstract, and this is the introduction. We have told you the parts of the abstract. Now, one by one, introduction in the abstract should answer the research question, why the study was done. It should be in plain English, simple. No jargon, no abbreviations are used in the, in the abstract. End with one line research question inform the study's objective. This is the abstract में जो 2 लाइन 3 4 लाइन लिखना है in the abstract. Then the methods in the abstract, study design, as I said, what are the participants, what was measured, you are measuring backache, how it was measured, if yoga, how you measure yoga also, how many hours, whether supervised, unsupervised, whatever. Then how data was analyzed. So that is a statistical test. And these are the results, the main findings, focused rather than broad-based. As I said, your study question was yoga so and backache, stick to that. Key results in words followed by numbers. You say, yes, people with yoga had a better outcome. So that is words. Then you give the effect size and then give the p-value and the confidence. Use confidence intervals and p-values. So you read a paper, you know that this is a good paper if these things are there. And conclusion should be specific. Mention implications of the results. What you do with the results should not be repetition of the results. Acid test of a good abstract is if the conclusions could have been written without access of the results, then nothing have been concluded from the study. So immediately with this checklist, you can, this is the checklist, whether background, method, results, conclusion, along with keywords are 4 or 5 main features of the study mentioned. Study design, intervention, participants, intervention, outcome. Do the conclusion as the, so you read as per the general guidelines, whether it is as, so if you read this paper, you can go forward. And similarly, when you are writing, you should write the abstract in the end and you should focus on these things so that your paper has a better chances of acceptance. And why abstract rejected? Dull topic with lot of previous research. No context here, don't give the background. Like you have to give the background, non-pharmaceutical. Small sample size, no numbers, all talk. You are just saying better, they felt better. Adjectives are there with numbers. Or sometimes you are just adding all numbers, no talk. All p-value and complex, but nobody can make anything out of it. Either too short, too long, poor readability, sloppiness, abbreviations. So these are the reasons. This is a checklist for abstract. And another thing in abstract is you cannot cite any references in abstract. That has to come in the main introduction and in the discussion or in the methods. So abstract doesn't contain any citation to references because it is a standalone. Yeah, many of the journals or search engines only give the abstract. So it doesn't carry the citations. So now we come to the main paper. Up till now we were talking of the abstract only. Main paper may the introduction. Introduction should have 4 themes. It should attract readers and tell them what to expect. So these are the 4 themes. Introduction. 4 elements should be included. Background of the research question. Why you are doing it, you have to justify. Or similarly, when you are reading it, you can say it is a public health problem. Everybody suffers from backache, and then you give the latest citations, references. Public health problem, you establish a public health problem by giving the latest studies, what is the prevalence of backache or lifetime risk of lifeache, recent references. Previous is, then the second paragraph is what has been done. You have to search the literature, yoga and backache, and what has been done as very summary. First paragraph, you establish the importance. Second paragraph is what summary of research done, synthetic. Then third paragraph are limitations in the earlier research. And last paragraph is what are the additions in this present paper. And any information which doesn't fit any of the 4 themes is redundant. And when you read also, you should see these things coming in the 4 paragraphs or 4 themes. Public health problem, clinical problem, what research has been done, what were the limitations, and in what way this paper adds to the available literature. Then only it's an original research. So we come to the first paragraph. Should start with a few words, overall topic. Should avoid too many textbook knowledge is not required. It is assumed the person knows the subject. Should be focused on your research question like yoga. I have taken one example, yoga and back. Should avoid triviality, should tell something new or novel, which are very common knowledge, textbooks knowledge, try to avoid it in a research paper. Should be reader friendly in a simple language. Then the second theme is the previous research in the area. No need for complete literature review, only what are the contradictions, what are the unknowns, summary, summarize it, and should be synthetic instead of pedantic. Pedantic means you say Chopra did this, Sharma did this. So if the reader is confused, then you have to synthesize it, which way the evidence is flowing. And then if there is no earlier research, then you can explain why existing belief, whatever is available. So it should be that you have established the second theme or second paragraph. The third paragraph, what are the limitations in earlier research? Very specific. It cannot be here that earlier research was useless and that the person did bad research. That is not the way. It should be not hypercritical also. You have to be very specific, whether it was a study design, maybe cohort study, you are doing a randomized trial, so it gives you an advantage. Or measurements, maybe rudimentary, self-reported, now you are measuring. Now there are many new devices are coming, electronic devices, when you can measure, say, physical activity or yoga hours. Earlier studies may have used this recall method. So you can find out in what way this you are improving on the present paper. Should not be hypercritical also until unless this present work is better. Or sometimes there may be nothing wrong. You can say, yes, you want to add to the literature, you want to do it in your setting, or you may try to replicate. But a paper gets a better rating. You can, when there is any remarkable improvement on earlier studies. So you have to be very critically appraise the literature and then add what is not been explored earlier. And then the last most important paragraph, improvement in the present paper. Innovative features may be in the design. As I say, it may be a case control study or doing a cohort study. That's an improvement. Or it may have been earlier studies, a cohort, you are doing RCT or bigger sample. Or your measurement methods must have changed now. You have got better measurement methods. Or if there is nothing, you are expanding on previous research, so you can say that. So this is the checklist of the introduction, major elements. So objective tone, address the study previous, anything which is not fitting in these four things, background, previous research, limitation, previous research, what this paper is adding, that is redundant. So that should be edited out. Now we are coming to the most important part, that is the material and methods. So design of the study, you know, basics design, case series, case report, they have got a lower in the hierarchy. Most journals don't accept case reports now. Case series doesn't have a control. So you have to explain exactly in the methodology what was the study design, participants kya the, what was measured, how the intervention was measured, how the outcome was measured, how confounders were measured, how data was analyzed. Then ethical approval, all journals nowadays require detailed ethical approval with letter number and date. Then if it is a trial, like randomized control trial or any intervention, any behavior intervention also, you have to register it with a clinical trial registration. In India, we have got a clinical trial registry, India, ctri.gov.in. You can, so you have to register it in a clinical trial registry. So these are the basic things in material methods. And whatever is described in material methods should come in the results. You have taken height, you have taken weight. So those should be used. You have taken height, weight, and it is BMI nahi bataya kabhi. So, or the other way around, you are mentioning BMI in the results and height, weight is not mentioned in the methods, how you measured it. So there is a close link between the results and method. If some findings are mentioned on the results like BMI, then how they were measured should have been described in the method section. Then study design, if more than one design you should describe and justify it. Say like you do a cross-sectional study to find out the diabetics. So that becomes first part. Then you want to follow up the diabetics for their compliance and other things. So that becomes a core study. So that becomes, and then don't use unnecessary words like randomized trials are always forward looking. So you cannot prospective randomized. That's a lack of economy of words. So methods में where the study was done, the place, how the subject, sample size, sampling plan, case definition. बैकअप को कैसे डिफाइन किया, what were the inclusion exclusion criteria, because this results would be applied to those target population which is defined by the inclusion criteria. How controls were in a case, how controls were, how random allocation was done in a RCT. It has to be done by lottery method every time. How blinding was done, because RCT में blinding is most important, and random allocation. These two things should be described in great detail when you read a paper also. And how much was the loss to follow up? There has to be a flow diagram, consort document. Method should be in a system and a case definition, very thorough case definition. Then only your study. Predictor means your intervention or cause. Outcome is the effect. Blinded. Observer instrument error, how they were eliminated. Any reagents, how. Observer error, how they were trained. Measures of observer, these are very important. And I have said weighing the pig. This is from an old English anecdote. In the market, they used to weigh the pig by stones. They didn't have. They used to take a plank, straight plank, and they used to put stones on one. And when the plank was level, they used to guess the weight of the stones, boulders. And that used to be the weight of the pig. So similarly, we are doing more studies like this by very good statistics. That is the plank. And that is biostats, and nowadays a lot of software and all. That should not distract you. You should look for the boulders. What are the confounders? What is the case definition? If the case definition has not been proper, observer error kya hai? Instrument error, have they eliminated that? How they did the measurements and how they did the data? That is the most important in methodology, because if those are imperfect, no amount of statistics can salvage the study. And if they are perfect, you don't have to know your statistics. You do these basic things, bricks, then even if the statistics is done wrongly, statistics can be corrected later. It can be redone. So this is the example of weighing the pig, which is from the research methods book by Abramson. Now we come to the data analysis. So what procedures were used, what packages were used. You have to give the manufacturer, the version, effect size I also said, and then type 1 and type 2 error. That is the error where it is required for sample size calculation. And what test of significance. As I said, don't worry about too much statistics. You have to see the other things. The basic things, measure kya kiya, ye kya kiya. Statistics I know can be a thorny issue for many, but gradually you will understand that it can always be consulted. Go to package. Type 1 error is like you have found a difference when there is no difference. Type 2 error is you fail to find a difference. So it depends on the research question. And that is used for sample size calculation. Then these are the checklists. Could reader replicate? The checklist is method should be with these methods, somebody should be able to replicate the study. It is something like you have got a manual with your TV or your mixie or your washing machine. Anybody can read. And the study design mention measurements ठीक से किया कि नहीं, quality control क्या है, that all affects the internal. Effect size, there's a difference in the two groups, power and sample. Because when you are calculating the sample size, how much difference you want to detect affects your sample size. If you want to detect a very small difference, you regard a larger sample size. And this effect size depends on your clinical relevance. Say in blood pressure, 10 millimeter का से ज़्यादा फर्क होगा तभी फायदा. Just 4-5 millimeter, it may not have clinical relevance. But if you are working in dentistry, even 2 millimeter will have a relevance. So it depends on your research question in your. So effect size, power is the ability to detect that difference with some certainty. All these are the sampling. Then data transformation, if you use log, and these are advanced things, but basic I have already explained. Then results are the major scientific contribution. Now after the methods, we come to the results. So you have to be very answer what was the research question, give those answers first. And you have to just not give data table. You have to convert it into interpret and convert it into information so that it can be readable. Irrelevant facts and figures should be eliminated. Results may be descriptive. You describe the sample, describe, or it can be analytic, that you have taken two groups, inferential statistics. How much probability is there that this is not by chance, there is a real difference. That is called analytic. Other is just describe it in percentages or in tables. So effect size is the star of the show. Okay, how much difference that has got clinical relevance. That p value is supportive. There may be number of effect sizes. You may have, say, yoga and backache, then some other factor and backache. So, but you have to just give the main effect size first, and those others may be secondary findings which may or may not have relevance. That you cannot take out of context and put it as a just by chance. If you do 20 tests, one test will come even when there is no difference. So measurement scale should dictate the statistical test of significance. If it is a categorical data, you can have only tables and chi-square. If it is a ordinal data, so non-parametric ranking system is there. Some test depends on ranks, ordinal data, say grades of muscle power. Or if it is a measurement like your height, weight, and other things, you have a very good measurement that gives a parametric test. Backache, you may have to do ordinal because backache may have some scores which may not be exactly metric scale. So it depends on the outcome, how you measure the outcome. So commonly use the relative risk in the intervention and what is the mean difference, pain score or backache disability score, whatever you use. What is the mean between the intervention and the control group? And if both are continuous variable, the predictor as well as the outcome, then there is a coefficient correlation. I'm not going detail because I know this becomes very heavy. So whatever your findings, that is in your sample, that is called point estimates. Around that, you have to give the confidence interval. That is a function of sample size. So always remember, I am not going into detail. I have to compress it into half an hour. So you have to tell the statistician or the package to find the confidence interval with this sample set around your point. So these are your requirements. And multivariate analysis, it may not be required in randomized trial because this is to control for the other factors, confounders, which can distort the association between the predictor and the outcome. So writing style should be simple, easily understandable. 10 साल का IQ का ये करना, बहुत हाई फाई नहीं लिखना है. Your method should be good and very simple. Should not be narration around tables and figures. It should complement the tables and figures. You just put the main things on the here and highlight the main findings in the table. Other reader can see for himself or herself. So these are the checklists for the results. Basic results presented, main effect sizes, the difference, which was the research question, easy to locate. The text should complement the tables. Level of precision commensurate with sample size. Suppose you are reading a paper, you find a very small sample and the confidence interval is also narrow, then something is wrong, manipulated data. The larger the sample size, then the confidence interval is, after some time you'll get the idea, statistical sense. And sometimes some results may be surprising, which may just come by chance. So that should be in proper context. So this is the tables, tables, rows, units. I'm not going into detail nowadays. Packages, Excel, they make good graphs and tables. Figures also easily made nowadays with software. Now come to the last discussion where mostly what happens, the people just repeat the results. So that is not a good discussion. You have got the results, you just make a passing reference to each finding and how it boring summaries of previous studies, mention few. So that is not a good discussion. Good discussion should be like this. What exactly did the study show? What is the relevance? How else the results could be interpreted? Could be it be discussed by this sampling error? There are three types of biases which comes in a study. The sampling bias. You have got a wrong sample, self-selection bias of volunteers, which may not represent the general population. First, the sampling bias. Second is the measurement bias, that your instruments were calibrated or not, your workers who are investigators were trained or not. सो दीज आर द मेजरमेंट बायस. ब्लाइंडिंग किया कि नहीं, क्योंकि उसमें प्लेसिबो इफेक्ट आ जाता है, ये आ जाता, बायस आ जाता, तो मेजरमेंट बायसेस जाता है. ये दिस कम्स अंडर द हेडिंग. एंड थर्ड इज द confounding bias. Can there be other factors? So when you are explaining the results, you have to consider whether you have taken a proper sample size ठीक है कि नहीं, random है कि नहीं, generalize कर सकते हैं कि नहीं. Then the internal validity measurement and then the confounding fact. Then you can say कि yes, I have. Then lastly is the probability, chance. Then that is the p-value. That could this have just come by chance. There is no difference in the group. So accordingly, when you write the discussion, you keep in mind कि I am elaborating these and I am saying कि my results are really to be taken seriously. Then I have taken the probability also. Then you say कि whether how it in context of other studies, other findings, it is going against the current or with the current or adding to the literature. And what do we do with the study now? What is the way forward? What clinical relevance? What public health relevance? What do we do with the results? So implications, conclusion, recommendations. So this should be the themes in discussion, and then you connect the paragraphs, you will make a very good. And similarly, when you read a good paper, you will find this type of style. So you read, then you can write, you read, write. Both are, I mean, it's an ongoing thing and it becomes natural. And if you just don't get intimidated by the big numbers and statistics, you just through that, you look for those boulders that these are the major things in a study. So discussion is paragraph. So these are the checklist, key findings presented with relevance, strength of conviction, that is a sampling bias, measurement bias, confounding bias, alternative explanation, how results could have occurred, then limitations and strength. That your study also may have some limitations, so you mention that. And strength, that yes, I have eliminated sampling bias, that can be strength. Or in any of these three domains, something is limited, mentioned as limitation. What you recommend, any data emerge, all this discussion should be only on the results. It cannot go like essay type. If you are adding something in the discussion which is not main result, nothing doing. That has to be thrown out. Then linking of paragraphs and superfluous point nahi hona to the study. You have to, the discussion should be around the results of the study. It cannot go on a general essay on, a school essay on yoga or something. Only to backache and yoga, backache. I've just taken one example of research question, yoga and backache. You can have your own, but see that no deviation from that. Then references should be very up to date. That gives you a scholarship. You see what happens, you do a dissertation, कोई 5 साल बाद निकालते हो और पुराना हो जाता जब, तो you have to update the references. And reader can and may provide sources for methodology. So references have to be, nowadays there shouldn't be a problem with your net search and other search engines. So all facts and figures should be cited, or anything, any fact figure should have a reference. Well-established fact should read the whole article to grasp the context. And you know the Vancouver style in a sequence, chronological. Results cannot have reference. That is your results. You cannot borrow from somewhere. Results and abstract also should not carry references. These two, and it should be updated periodically. If your paper is lying for some time, you have to keep updating. And note on chat GPT and plagiarism, because that has come recently. If you find a lot of plagiarism, you should do a plagiarism check also, or you should not use, if you use chatbot, you have to paraphrase it, because chatbot, chat GPT, they pick up ad verbatim. So you are unnecessarily, you are subjecting yourself to a plagiarism. So you have to paraphrase, use your own. Of course, nowadays AI does paraphrase also. So the details should be described. We what Chat GPT authors are accountable for the work performed. Most Chat GPT do not cite references. This nowadays I think some are citing, but you have to do the reverse engineering, cross-check the references. Do not leave everything to Chat GPT. And authors should paraphrase use the Chat GPT only as an assistant. Don't become the slave of Chat GPT. You should be mastering the Chat GPT, but it should be a slave, and it should help you. But you should always do scholar. It is just an assistant. It gets the literature, and it will give you a lot of junk literature. It is something like Hanumanji who brought the whole mountain, and then the Sanjeevani has to be taken out by that Ved who knows the. So the lot of kachara will come with ChatGPT. So you require scholarship to pick up the relevant things. So these are the important bibliography. This is the international guidelines, the consort statement that is for a checklist for a randomized control trial, clinical trials. Standards of reporting trials, consolidated statement on reporting trials, clinical trials. It is available in the net. Then the STARD, that is for diagnostic test. If you are doing a paper or a diagnostic that requires a separate session, here I have given an overview. So it is available in the, then the STROBE is for observational studies. CONSORT is for trials. STROBE is standard for reporting observational studies in epidemiology, where the intervention is not there, case control, case series, case. Then there is a uniform requirement for medical journals, International Committee of Medical Journals. So this will help you get up to date on communication, scientific communication. These are for meta-analysis. MOOS is meta-analysis, observational studies, your pooling studies and reporting. Prisma, Prospero, a statement of review articles, if you want to do a. Then last reference is the most important. I like it, and most of the this presentation has been taken from this book. Browner W.S. Publishing and Presenting Clinical Research. Lippincott and Williams, Philadelphia, 1999. Newer edition may have come. So this book you should get it. I think it is available on Amazon. You can get a soft copy also. So that's all I think. And thank you. If there are any questions, I can take it.